Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah. He had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. This man went up out of his city from year to worship and to sacrifice to Yahweh of armies in Shiloh. Hannah's rival provoked her severely to make her fret, because Yahweh had shut up her womb. So it happened year by year, that when she went up to the house of Yahweh, her rival provoked her. Therefore she wept and didn't eat. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why don't you eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? So Hannah rose up after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his seat by the doorpost of Yahweh's temple. She was in bitterness of soul, and prayed to Yahweh, and wept severely. She vowed a vow, and said, Yahweh of armies, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant, and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a boy, then I will give him to Yahweh all the days of his life, and no razor shall come on his head. It happened, as she continued praying before Yahweh, that Eli saw her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunk. Eli said to her, How long will you be drunk? Put away your wine from you. Hannah answered, No, my lord. I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have poured out my soul before Yahweh. Don't count your servant for a wicked woman, for I have been speaking out of the abundance of my complaint and my provocation. Then Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him. They rose up in the morning early, and worshipped before Yahweh, and returned and came to their house to Ramah. Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and Yahweh remembered her. It happened, when the time had come, that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of Yahweh. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her, and brought him to the house of Yahweh in Shiloh. The child was young. She said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to Yahweh. For this child I prayed, and Yahweh has given me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore also I have given him to Yahweh. As long as he lives, he is given to Yahweh. He worshipped Yahweh there. Hannah prayed and said, My heart exults in Yahweh. My horn is exalted in Yahweh. My mouth is enlarged over my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one as holy as Yahweh, for there is no one besides you, nor is there any rock like our God. Talk no more so exceeding proudly. Don't let arrogance come out of your mouth. For Yahweh is a God of knowledge. By him actions are weighed. Yahweh kills and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol and brings up. Yahweh makes poor and makes rich. He brings low, he also lifts up. He raises up the poor out of the dust. He lifts up the needy from the dunghill, to make them sit with princes and inherit the throne of glory. Then Elkanah went to Ramah to his house. The child served Yahweh before Eli the priest. Now the sons of Eli were base men. They didn't know Yahweh. But Samuel ministered before Yahweh, being a child, clothed with a linen ephod. The child Samuel grew on, and was in favor both with Yahweh and also with men. The child Samuel ministered to Yahweh before Eli. The word of Yahweh was precious in those days. There was no frequent vision. It happened at that time, when Eli was laid down in his place. Now his eyes had begun to grow dim, so that he could not see, and the lamp of God hadn't yet gone out. And Samuel had laid down in Yahweh's temple, where the ark of God was. That Yahweh called Samuel, and he said, Here I am. He ran to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. He said, I didn't call. Lie down again. He went and lay down. Yahweh called yet again, Samuel. Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. He answered, I didn't call, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel didn't yet know Yahweh, neither was the word of Yahweh yet revealed to him. Yahweh called Samuel again the third time. He arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. Eli perceived that Yahweh had called the child. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, Go, lie down. It shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say, Speak, Yahweh, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Yahweh came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel said, Speak, for your servant hears. Yahweh said to Samuel, Behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of everyone who hears it shall tingle. Samuel lay until the morning, and opened the doors of the house of Yahweh. Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. He said, Here I am. He said, What is the thing that Yahweh has spoken to you? Please don't hide it from me. Samuel told him every bit and hid nothing from him. He said, It is Yahweh. Let him do what seems good to him. Samuel grew, and Yahweh was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. All Israel from Dan even to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of Yahweh. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and encamped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped in Aphek. The Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was struck down before the Philistines, and they killed of the army in the field about 4,000 men. When the people had come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, Why has Yahweh struck us today before the Philistines? Let us get the ark of the covenant of Yahweh out of Shiloh to us, that it may come among us, and save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of armies, who sits above the cherubim, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of Yahweh came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean? They understood that the ark of Yahweh had come into the camp. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, God has come into the camp. They said, Woe to us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? Be strong and behave like men, O you Philistines, that you not be servants to the Hebrews. Quit yourselves like men and fight. The Philistines fought, and Israel was struck, and they fled every man to his tent. There was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. The ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. There ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn, and with earth on his head. When he came, behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road, watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. The man told Eli, I fled from the army, and the ark of God has been taken. It happened, when he made mention of the ark of God, that Eli fell from off his seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. Now the Philistines had taken the ark of God, and they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. The Philistines took the ark of God, and brought it into the house of Dagon, and set it by Dagon. When they of Ashdod arose early on the next day, behold, Dagon was fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. They took Dagon and set him in his place again. When they arose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon was fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. and the head of Dagon, and both the palms of his hands lay cut off on the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. The hand of Yahweh was heavy on the people of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and struck them with tumors, even Ashdod and its borders. When the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, "The ark of the God of Israel shall not stay with us, for his hand is severe on us, and on Dagon our God." So they sent and gathered all the lords of the Philistines to them, and said, "What shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel?" They answered, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about to Gath." They carried the ark of the God of Israel there. The ark of Yahweh was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. The Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, "What shall we do with the ark of Yahweh? Show us with which we shall send it to its place." They said, "If you send away the ark of the God of Israel, don't send it empty, but by all means return him a trespass offering. Then you shall be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand is not removed from you." So they made a new cart, and took 2 milk cows and tied them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home, and they put the ark of Yahweh on the cart. The cows took the straight way by the way to Beth Shemesh. They went along the highway, lowing as they went, and didn't turn aside to the right hand or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them to the border of Beth Shemesh. They of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, and rejoiced to see it. The Levites took down the ark of Yahweh, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices the same day to Yahweh. Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, "If you do return to Yahweh with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your hearts to Yahweh, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines." Then the children of Israel put away the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and served Yahweh only. Samuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray for you to Yahweh." They gathered together to Mizpah, and drew water, and poured it out before Yahweh, and fasted on that day, and said there, "We have sinned against Yahweh." As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But Yahweh thundered with a great thunder on that day on the Philistines, and confused them, and they were struck down before Israel. Then Samuel took a stone, and set it between Mizpah and Shin, and called its name Ebenezer, saying, "Yahweh helped us until now." Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. It happened, when Samuel was old, that he made his sons judges over Israel. His sons didn't walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain, took bribes, and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and came to Samuel to Ramah. And they said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons don't walk in your ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." Samuel prayed to Yahweh. Yahweh said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in all that they tell you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not be king over them. Now therefore listen to their voice. However you shall protest solemnly to them, and shall show them the way of the king who shall reign over them." Samuel told all the words of Yahweh to the people who asked of him a king. He said, "This will be the way of the king who shall reign over you. He will take your sons, and appoint them to him for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. He will take your daughters to be perfumers, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. He will take your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive groves, even their best, and give them to his servants. You shall be his servants. You shall cry out in that day because of your king whom you shall have chosen, and Yahweh will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, "No, but we will have a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us, and go out before us, and fight our battles." Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he repeated them in the ears of Yahweh. Yahweh said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice, and make them a king." Now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, a mighty man of valor. He had a son whose name was Saul, an impressive young man, and there was not among the children of Israel a better person than he. From his shoulders and upward he was higher than any of the people. The donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. Kish said to Saul his son, "Take now one of the servants with you, and arise, go seek the donkeys." When they had come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant, "Come, and let us return, lest my father stop caring about the donkeys and be anxious for us." The servant said, "Behold now, there is in this city a man of God, and he is a man who is held in honor. All that he says surely comes to pass. Now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us concerning our journey." So they went to the city where the man of God was. Now Yahweh had revealed to Samuel a day before Saul came, saying, "Tomorrow about this time I will send you a man out of the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be prince over my people Israel." When Samuel saw Saul, Yahweh said to him, "Behold, the man of whom I spoke to you, this same shall have authority over my people." Then Saul drew near to Samuel in the gate and said, "Please tell me where the seer's house is." Samuel answered Saul, "I am the seer. Go up before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today. As for your donkeys who were lost 3 days ago, don't set your mind on them, for they are found." Then Samuel took the vial of oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him and said, "Hasn't Yahweh anointed you to be prince over his inheritance? When you have departed from me today, then you will find 2 men by Rachel's tomb. The Spirit of Yahweh will come mightily on you, and you shall prophesy with them, and shall be turned into another man. Let it be, when these signs have come to you, that you do as occasion shall serve you, for God is with you." It was so that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs happened that day. When they came there to the hill, behold, a band of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came mightily on him, and he prophesied among them. Samuel called the people together to Yahweh to Mizpah, and he said to the children of Israel, "Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms that oppressed you." So Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was selected. He brought the tribe of Benjamin near by their families, and the family of the Matrites was selected, and Saul, the son of Kish, was selected. But when they sought him, he could not be found. Therefore they asked of Yahweh further, "Is there yet a man to come here?" Yahweh answered, "Behold, he has hidden himself among the baggage." They ran and fetched him there, and when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see him whom Yahweh has chosen, that there is none like him among all the people?" All the people shouted and said, "Long live the king!" Then Samuel told the people the regulations of the kingdom, and wrote it in a book, and laid it up before Yahweh. Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. Then Nahash the Ammonite came up, and encamped against Jabesh-Gilead. The Spirit of God came mightily on Saul when he heard those words, and his anger was greatly kindled. He took a yoke of oxen, and cut them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the borders of Israel by the hand of messengers, saying, "Whoever doesn't come forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen." The dread of Yahweh fell on the people, and they came out as one man. On the next day Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch, and struck the Ammonites until the heat of the day. Samuel said to the people, "Come, and let us go to Gilgal, and renew the kingdom there." All the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before Yahweh in Gilgal. There they offered sacrifices of peace offerings before Yahweh, and there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. Samuel said to all Israel, Behold, I have listened to your voice in all that you said to me, and have made a king over you. Now behold, the king walks before you, and I am old and gray-headed. Here I am, witness against me before Yahweh and before his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Whose donkey have I taken? Whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Of whose hand have I taken a ransom? They said, You have not defrauded us, nor oppressed us, neither have you taken anything from any man's hand. Samuel said to the people, Don't be afraid. You have indeed done all this evil. Yet don't turn aside from following Yahweh, but serve Yahweh with all your heart. Don't turn aside, for then you would go after vain things which can't profit nor deliver, for they are vain. For Yahweh will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, because it has pleased Yahweh to make you a people to himself. Moreover, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against Yahweh in ceasing to pray for you. But I will instruct you in the good and the right way. Only fear Yahweh, and serve him in truth with all your heart. For consider what great things he has done for you. But if you shall still do wickedly, you shall be consumed, both you and your king. Saul reigned over Israel, and he chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel. Jonathan struck the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. The Philistines assembled themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand, which is on the seashore in multitude. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, then the people hid themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in coverts and in pits. Saul waited 7 days, according to the time set by Samuel. But Samuel didn't come to Gilgal, and the people were scattering from him. Saul said, Bring here the burnt offering to me, and the peace offerings. He offered the burnt offering. It came to pass that as soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might greet him. Samuel said, What have you done? Samuel said to Saul, You have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of Yahweh your God, which he commanded you. For now Yahweh would have established your kingdom on Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue. Yahweh has sought for himself a man after his own heart, and Yahweh has appointed him to be prince over his people, because you have not kept that which Yahweh commanded you. Now it fell on a day that Jonathan the son of Saul said to the young man who bore his armor, Come, and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he didn't tell his father. Jonathan said, Come, and let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that Yahweh will work for us, for there is no restraint on Yahweh to save by many or by few. So they both showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines. Jonathan climbed up on his hands and on his feet, and his armor-bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer killed them after him. That first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor-bearer made was about 20 men. There was a trembling in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and the raiders also trembled, and the earth quaked. So there was an exceedingly great trembling. So Yahweh saved Israel that day. Samuel said to Saul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore listen to the voice of the words of Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of armies, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he set himself against him in the way when he came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and don't spare them. Saul defeated the Amalekites. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the cattle, and would not utterly destroy them. but everything that was vile and refuse that they destroyed utterly. Then the word of Yahweh came to Samuel, saying, It grieves me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me, and has not performed my commandments. Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, You are blessed by Yahweh. I have performed the commandment of Yahweh. Samuel said, Then what means this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the cattle, which I hear? Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the cattle to sacrifice to Yahweh your God. Samuel said, Has Yahweh as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as idolatry and teraphim. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he has also rejected you from being king. Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of Yahweh and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death, for Samuel mourned for Saul. Yahweh grieved that he had made Saul king over Israel. Yahweh said to Samuel, How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil, and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided a king for myself among his sons. Samuel did that which Yahweh spoke, and came to Bethlehem. It happened, when they had come, that he looked at Eliab and said, Surely Yahweh's anointed is before him. But Yahweh said to Samuel, Don't look on his face, or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For man looks at the outward appearance, but Yahweh looks at the heart. Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. Samuel said to Jesse, Yahweh has not chosen these. Samuel said to Jesse, Are all your children here? He said, There remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is keeping the sheep. Samuel said to Jesse, Send and get him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. He sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and with a handsome face and good appearance. Yahweh said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of Yahweh came mightily on David from that day forward. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle. There went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of brass on his head, and he was clad with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. He stood and cried to the armies of Israel, and said to them, Why have you come out to set your battle in array? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Saul said to David, You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. David said to Saul, Your servant kept his father's sheep, and when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after him and struck him and rescued it out of his mouth. Yahweh, who delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, Go, and Yahweh shall be with you. David took his staff in his hand, and chose for himself 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in the shepherd's bag which he had, even in his pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. When the Philistine looked around and saw David, He disdained him, for he was but a youth. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?" Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of Yahweh of armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today Yahweh will deliver you into my hand. This assembly shall know that Yahweh doesn't save with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahweh's, and he will give you into our hand." It happened, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag, took a stone, and slung it, and struck the Philistine in his forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and struck the Philistine, and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. It happened, when he had finished speaking to Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul. Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him, and gave it to David, and his clothing, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his sash. The women sang to one another as they played, and said, "Saul has slain his thousands, David his 10,000s. Saul was very angry, and this saying displeased him. Saul eyed David from that day and forward. David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and Yahweh was with him. When Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he stood in awe of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, for he went out and came in before them. Saul spoke to Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. Jonathan told David, saying, "Saul my father seeks to kill you. Now therefore, please take care of yourself in the morning, and live in a secret place, and hide yourself." Jonathan spoke good of David to Saul his father, and said to him, "Don't let the king sin against his servant, against David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his works have been very good toward you. Why then will you sin against innocent blood, to kill David without a cause?" Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul swore, "As Yahweh lives, he shall not be put to death." Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him and to kill him in the morning. Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, "If you don't save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed." So Michal let David down through the window, and he went and fled and escaped. So David fled and escaped, and came to Samuel to Ramah, and told him all that Saul had done to him. David fled from Naioth in Ramah, and came and said before Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life?" Jonathan said to David, "Whatever your soul desires, I will even do it for you." David said, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to dine with the king, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field. If your father misses me at all, then say, 'David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city.'" So David hid himself in the field. When the new moon had come, the king sat down to eat food. David's place was empty. Saul said to Jonathan his son, "Why doesn't the son of Jesse come to eat, neither yesterday nor today?" Jonathan answered Saul, "David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem." Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, "For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you shall not be established, nor your kingdom. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die." Jonathan answered Saul his father, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Saul cast his spear at him to strike him, By this, Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David. He shot the arrows as a sign for David to flee. The boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master, but the boy didn't know anything. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. As soon as the boy was gone, David arose, and they kissed one another, and wept one with another. And David wept the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, because we have both sworn in the name of Yahweh, saying, Yahweh shall be between me and you, and between my seed and your seed forever." He arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Then David came to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech came to meet David trembling, and said to him, "Why are you alone, and no man with you?" David said to Ahimelech the priest, "The king has commanded me a business. Now therefore, what is under your hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or whatever there is present." The priest answered David, "There is no common bread under my hand, but there is holy bread." So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there but the show bread that was taken from before Yahweh. David said to Ahimelech, "Isn't there here under your hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste." The priest said, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it, for there is no other except that here." David said, "There is none like that. Give it to me." David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. David therefore departed from there, and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. Everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented, gathered themselves to him, and he became captain over them. There were with him about 400 men. Then Saul said to his servants, "Hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? All of you have conspired against me." Then the king said to the guard who stood about him, "Turn and kill the priests of Yahweh." But the servants of the king wouldn't put forth their hand to fall on the priests of Yahweh. The king said to Doeg, "You turn and attack the priests." Doeg the Edomite turned, and he attacked the priests, and he killed on that day many persons. One of the sons of Ahimelech, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. David said to Abiathar, "Stay with me. Don't be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping." They told David, saying, "Behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah, and are robbing the threshing floors." Therefore David inquired of Yahweh, saying, "Shall I go and strike these Philistines?" Yahweh said to David, "Go and strike the Philistines, and save Keilah." So David and his men went to Keilah, and fought with the Philistines, and saved the inhabitants of Keilah. David stayed in the wilderness in the strongholds, and remained in the hill country in the wilderness of Ziph. Saul sought him every day, but God didn't deliver him into his hand. Jonathan, Saul's son, arose, and went to David into the woods, and strengthened his hand in God. He said to him, "Don't be afraid, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you, and you shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you." They both made a covenant before Yahweh. David stayed in the woods, and Jonathan went to his house. It happened, when Saul had returned from following the Philistines, that he was told, saying, "Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi." Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and went to seek David and his men. He came to the sheep pens by the way, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were staying in the innermost parts of the cave. The men of David said to him, "Behold, the day of which Yahweh said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you." Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe secretly. It happened afterward that David's heart struck him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. He said to his men, "Yahweh forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, Yahweh's anointed, to put forth my hand against him, since he is Yahweh's anointed." So David checked his men with these words and didn't allow them to rise against Saul. Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, "My lord the king." When Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and showed respect. David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to men's words, saying, 'Behold, David seeks to harm you'? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how Yahweh had delivered you today into my hand in the cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you, and I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is Yahweh's anointed. Moreover, my father, behold, the skirt of your robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of your robe, and didn't kill you, no, and see that there is neither evil nor disobedience in my hand. And I have not sinned against you, though you hunt for my life to take it." It came to pass, when David had finished speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have done good to me, whereas I have done evil to you. You have declared this day how you have dealt well with me, because when Yahweh had delivered me up into your hand, you didn't kill me. Now behold, I know that you shall surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear now therefore to me by Yahweh, that you will not cut off my offspring after me." David swore to Saul. Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Samuel died, and all Israel gathered themselves together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. There was a man in Maon, whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great. And he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. The woman was intelligent and beautiful, but the man was surly and evil in his doings. David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name." Nabal answered David's servants and said, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Shall I then take my bread and my water and give it to men who come from I don't know where?" So David's young men turned on their way and went back and told him all these words. David said to his men, "Every man put on his sword." About 400 men followed David. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. The men were very good to us, and we were not harmed." Then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, and 2 containers of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and laid them on donkeys. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got off her donkey, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Let your servant please speak in your ears. Please forgive the trespass of your servant. When Yahweh has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, this shall be no grief to you, that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself." David said to Abigail, "Blessed is Yahweh, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed is your discretion, and blessed are you who have kept me this day from blood guiltiness, and from avenging myself with my own hand." So David received from her hand that which she had brought him. About 10 days later, Yahweh struck Nabal so that he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he sent and spoke concerning Abigail, to take her to him as wife. Abigail became David's wife. Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the place of the wagons, with his spear stuck in the ground at his head, and Abner and the people lay around him. Then Abishai said to David, God has delivered up your enemy into your hand today. Now therefore please let me strike him with the spear to the earth at one stroke, and I will not strike him the second time. David said to Abishai, Don't destroy him, for who can put forth his hand against Yahweh's anointed and be guiltless? As Yahweh lives, Yahweh will strike him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall go down into battle and perish. Yahweh forbid that I should put forth my hand against Yahweh's anointed. But now please take the spear that is at his head and the jar of water, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it, nor knew it, neither did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from Yahweh had fallen on them. Then David went over to the other side, and stood on the top of the mountain afar off, a great space being between them. David cried to the people, Here is the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. Yahweh delivered you into my hand today, but I wouldn't put forth my hand against Yahweh's anointed. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will no more do you harm, because my life was precious in your eyes today. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly. David answered, Behold the spear, O king. Let then one of the young men come over and get it. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should escape into the land of the Philistines. So David arose and passed over, he and the 600 men who were with him, to Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. David lived with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household. It was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, and he sought no more for him. The Philistines gathered themselves together and came and encamped. Saul gathered all Israel together, and they encamped in Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. When Saul inquired of Yahweh, Yahweh didn't answer him, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, Seek me a woman who has a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. His servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman who has a familiar spirit at Endor. Saul disguised himself, and put on other clothing, and went, he and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. The woman said, Whom shall I bring up to you? He said, Bring me up Samuel. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. Samuel said to Saul, Why have you disturbed me to bring me up? Saul answered, I am very distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me, and answers me no more. Then Samuel said, Why then do you ask of me, since Yahweh has departed from you, and has become your adversary? Yahweh will deliver Israel also with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Then Saul fell immediately his full length on the earth, and was terrified because of the words of Samuel. It happened, when David and his men had come to Ziklag on the 3rd day, that the Amalekites had made a raid on the south, and on Ziklag, and had struck Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and all who were in it. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voice and wept, until they had no more power to weep. But David strengthened himself in Yahweh his God. David inquired of Yahweh, saying, If I pursue after this troop, shall I overtake them? He answered him, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and shall without fail recover all. So David recovered all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives. There was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither plunder nor anything that they had taken to them. David brought back all. David came to Ziklag, and he sent of the plunder to the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, Behold, a present for you, of the plunder of the enemies of Yahweh. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines, and fell down slain on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines followed hard on Saul and on his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan, and Abinadab, and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. The battle went hard against Saul, and the archers overtook him, and he was greatly distressed by reason of the archers. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, Draw your sword, and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was terrified. Therefore Saul took his sword, and fell on it. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he likewise fell on his sword, and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men, that same day together. When the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities, and fled, and the Philistines came and lived in them. When the inhabitants of Jabesh-Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose, and went all night, and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, and came to Jabesh, and burnt them there. They took their bones, and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days.